Hi, welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. Welcome on board. We're going to take further, continue our journey. And yesterday we talked about 前仆后继. So the front, fall down, the back, continue. Okay, it's imagine Normandy kind of bloody situation when people charges forward, regardless of if the front line got gunned down. So that's the kind of motion we're talking about in the language context, but it can also be the carrier of the idea of the, I don't know, the spiritual idea or the creative idea, or the thinking school of thoughts, like continuation of that. That's again, 前仆后继, but mostly it's in a military sense. Okay, so today we inherit two characters from yesterday, 后继有人. Okay, 后继 is after, right? 后 we talked about yesterday of this baby backward walking, the slowest one. So that's a kind of positioning, is falling behind. So that's the behind. And in Chinese language, when we talk about 后, a lot of times it's like behind you. Similar to English, if it's like you leave something behind you, that means you're already not here in this world anymore. It's posthumous. So 后 means after somebody's death. That's the 后. Okay, so after death, continue the thread making. 有人, you have person. So 继, we talked about one interpretation of this complicated structure that related to threading, to fabric making, looming, right? More thread, more spools of thread added to it to make a bigger, longer fabric. So it's a continuation of long fabric making. So that's a kind of the continuation we talk about. That's version 1. Version 2, as we saw in this character, this two circle thing with a line connected is an image, a visual representation of babies as well. And so that means we can switch our lens to look at this not as spools of thread, but as babies. So we have 1, 2 babies, another 1, 2 babies, batch production of babies. And that's the thread, your family bloodline kind of thread continuation. So that's the second version of why this character that kind of eventually simplified instead of so many babies inside it, just 4 strokes to each one represent 1 baby. And there are 4. So a batch, a lot of them together and unified this, there's a spatial sense, right? Like fall to the ground level, stacking up babies. Okay, so that means that's the wish. That's the kind of continuation. Like you, one person, create visually here babies after you. So after you leave this world, you're left behind babies, your next generation, your bloodline. So that's the second version of 继. 有人有, we talked about before, but here is another visual representation. And you can see here, the thinner, skinnier, lighter weighted strokes, right? But here is more dramatic, thicker lined strokes. So that's because this came from different captures of the language. It's written on different media. So the rendering of the character looks different. I mean, I like both. It has their own charm and elegance in it. But here is visually to show you, and you can see here it's like a missing piece from there, but it's supposed to be a stroke. So, okay, this could mean this structure with 2 horizontal lines in between. That could mean the moon, like a crescent shape of the moon. This, cloud covered through it. But it could also mean the meat, the moon, or the meat is the question here. Well, it means the meat here. Normally, if it's the meat, it was written slightly like omega shaped with a bigger bob on the top and then narrow down at at the entrance or the opening over there. But over here is another rendering. It simply means the meat without this omega shape outside. And then here, the top is three-fingered hand here with the wrist here. So that's simply the hand next to the meat. That's half. Because in ancient times, I mean, imagine a hunter-gatherer. Gatherer is like, okay, you can go get your plant. You know where the trees or the sources of food are. But hunting, not dependent on you. It's like you occasionally may have some catch, right? So having meat is not an expected regular activity. I assume like catching a meat is much further, like harder or irregular than gathering the fruits, plants, plant-based or meat-based, right? Protein-based. So having meat back then was major half. So that becomes a determination of whether have it or not, like whether you have meat or not. Like that's the main thing. Okay, so that's half. This is human figure. So that's our simplified figure, 2 legs stick figure. So 后继有人 simply means after you're gone, you have somebody continue your bloodline. I took the liberty to create this expression successor. That means you have somebody after you, you have your offspring, basically. I again, 后继有人 eventually mean not just your bloodline. It could be your spiritual bloodline as well, or your school of thinking bloodline. People who carry on, continuing your thoughts, or whatever you find that you founded. So I guess in academic, like people quote refer to the previous author, previous author. So all that is continuation of the same discovery, not the same, I mean, new, expanded or revised discovery of something, right? And that we can regard that as 后继有人 as well, or a craftsmanship, like making some really rare crafts that may or may not pass down to the next generation. So somebody started, but need to find some successor. Not necessarily the bloodline. That's the most default and convenient to find your successor in your offspring. But sometimes as a stranger, you train it as an apprentice. You train them, and they become carry on of your torch, so to speak. So that's the kind of 后继有人, even if it's beginning with just bloodline continuation. So here I put a famous Chinese book based show, like a TV show, talking about 4 generations living together. 四世同堂, 4 generations, same housing. So Chinese people, that back then, at least that's the ideal life. You have 4 generations living together, and you can see Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4. And women are back then, okay, mothers, they pass down the bloodline, but it's the last name holders, this men's, that's regarded as the true successor. So, these guys, they cluster together. That's the bloodline passing down. So 4 generations living together, that's the ideal, the dream. And I want to just say a little bit of social commentary, like at the age of aging society, meaning a lot of people choose not to have kids or have fewer, like a funnel down shape. Instead of this, you can kind of see like a younger, the black-haired is a lot more outnumbered the previous generation. So it's a kind of a funneling out. We're kind of funneling down, right? So in the era of people replacement rate is falling down, like the future generations are shrinking, the population are going down. This ancient piece of Chinese ideal family structure of striving to keep your bloodline, to continue your bloodline, and we talked about 世, this concept before. It's like 3 strokes, signifies 3 decades. So 3 decades is considered a generation. Like that's the maximum time allowed for you to have the next generation. And that's like a rule, like that's you must have. Contemporary people, like we're going after a relationship, we have to make sure we're secure in life, many conditions. And then we may or may not have children. But in ancient Chinese back then, it's like you have to, because that's your most important, the most important missions in life is to pass down your bloodline, to make sure your 后继有人, you're succeeded by somebody in your same blood. Okay, so cashing into the currency of thinking by one word a day with Sophie. See you another day.